Hello, my name is Randy Dobson. I'm an instructor here in the Houston, Texas area, and this video will be on the dimensioning command in Autocad. It will actually be my second 2 of 2 or final video for dimensioning. And what I want to cover within this is really just going over the dim style dimension settings, which if you see this typical box up there, it's going to be this little arrow right here, or you could always just type dim style. And this is where your settings will be. Uh, the first thing is, as I mentioned in my first video on dimensioning, is if you have dimensioning that needs to be different within a drawing, you create a different dimension style, just like you do a layer. If you need a layer that has a center line or a dash line, you create a layer for the center line and a layer for the dash line. Again, like over here, and I've got two sessions working so I can help you. These aren't the same drawing. But if you notice here, I've got a 2-digit precision and a 4-digit. Well, what I did was I created a 2-digit, uh, as you can see, 2 decimal, and then this one right here is just the standard. So you can have as many of these as you want. You whenever you go to create one, then once you create it, you just put the object on that layer, or I'm sorry, on that uh, dimension style. See, I'm already getting confused. If I come up here and highlight this one, and notice it's on standard, if I change it to the 2 decimal, then it's got the 2 decimal. So again, it's similar to the how a layer functions. Don't think that they work with each other. I'm just wanting you to understand the style of it. Let's get started here. I kind of want to go over all the settings so you can kind of see where things are. First, you hit modify. Well, the first one is dealing with lines. So you only have two types of lines. You have dimension lines and extension lines. Okay, what we have is this right here, this line and this line are dimension lines, and then this one here and this one here are extension. Now, understanding the terminology, like here, suppress, if you want to suppress those to where you don't want to see them, just like on this one right here, if you notice, if I move it down, see it's got extension lines. Well, maybe this one I would do it to where there was an extension line, so I didn't have that kind of double line over here. But it's understanding that part of it. Another one is here's your extension lines, is saying extend beyond dimension line. Well, that's this distance right here. Okay, because it's saying extension line, extending. Here's extension beyond the dimension. So if you wanted to shorten this or make it longer, you would change this setting. Offset from origin. Well, here is my origin right there where my little def point is. That space that's right there. And you will learn as your skills improve that you want a little bit of daylight in here, because if you don't, then if it's too close like that, it's hard to tell if this line is actually part of the object. So you want it to have, a good enough space, but you don't want it to be so far away that it just kind of gets lost out there in space. So again, this is something you will learn over time. You can actually fix your extension lines if you wanted to, uh, but that's up to how you want to show it. The line types, I usually change all of these to by layer instead of by block, but that's up to you, or make them all continuous. This is something that you can change. Uh, just like on here, I'm going to open up this dim style for this current session, and I'm going to go to the 2 decimal. Actually, I'm going to go to the standard, and I'm going to modify it to where I turn off my extension lines. I want you to watch all these extension lines go away. See, they all went away. Now these didn't, because that's a different style. Just like if I froze a layer, only the things on that layer would be frozen. Okay, let me undo that so we can get it back. So again, dimension lines are everything up here, and then down here are your extension lines. Now symbols and arrowheads. You've got your arrowheads, your architectural tick, open. There's all kinds of different ones, even a dot. If you want to use it, again, that depends on what style or what your assignment says. Here's your arrow size. If you want to change your arrow size, that's pretty self-explanatory. The center mark is this right here. Okay, you can have a center mark, or you could just click none and it would just put a little def point there, which doesn't show up. This changes the size of it. Here's your dimension break. If you remember from the first one, I was telling you that one of the rules of dimensioning and drafting is that dimension lines do not cross. So AutoCAD said, hey, instead of exploding it like you're not supposed to, we're going to give you a break. And you can adjust how far that break is, being a little bit or a lot. This is your break size. Your arc length symbol, which is this one right here. You can have it preceding, you could have it above the dimension, or you could have none. Again, this pertains to this type of setting here. I don't really deal with the jog, so we're going to just ignore that one for now. Text. Okay, this is where you pick the text style that you want. Now, one thing I'm going to show y'all, if you haven't done the text style yet, I'm going to create a text style, a new one, and I'm just going to call it Randy. And I'm going to make Randy a height of 1. Hit apply, and I've closed it. Now I'm going to go back to dim styles. Now notice that when I go to text, standard lets me change the size. Now if you ever pick on one like this one, Randy, notice it will not let me change the size. If you remember from my first video, that anything that's shaded is meaning that this is being overridden by another setting. What's happened is I've told AutoCAD that I want my style of text Randy, named Randy, to be 1, so it will not allow me to change it here. Okay, I would either have to go back and make the Randy style 0 so I could change it, or I would just have to live with this or go with another one like standard to where, you know, I can change the height, whatever I want it to be. You notice here, fraction height scale, this is shaded. Why is it shaded? Because I'm on decimal. Okay, if I was on architectural, which I'll show you here in a minute, it would show up. If you want a frame around your dimensions, there you go. Piece of cake. You can put boxes around them if you want. Now this next one, the text placement, centered is like you see here, or if I change it to above, as you can see, it puts it above. It would actually over here, it would, let me change it to above just so you can kind of see. Above, as you can see, it's put it above. Okay, and here is your offset. Here's your above. Horizontal, we typically leave centered. This left to right is the way that we read things. Those pretty much stay alone. Leave them alone. Offset from dim line, dimension line. That's that little space right here. Okay. You don't want it to be too far away. You don't want it to be too close. I mean, if I come and do something like this, if I change that setting to offset from dim line, let's just make it 0.01. Now what happens is when this prints, that can bleed in on there, and depending on what kind of numbers you have, a 2 could end up looking like a 7 if the 2 blended in down here, and so on. So again, this is one of those you'll just learn by looking at drawings, and you'll see good drawings. This offset from dim line is also this distance. Okay, so if it's on top, it's between the text and the dimension lines. If it's on the side, it's this distance right in here. Let me just draw a donut just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So it's, you know, let me turn that off. That is this distance here, and that distance here, or this distance right in there, that little space right there. Okay. Text alignment. As you can see, all of my text are horizontal. Okay, which is the same here. Notice this is horizontal, but if I align it with the dimension line, then it will go as you can see, it runs along that. Once again, it comes back to what your drawing shows. I'm not going to be going into the ISO standard. That's just an international standard. But for these assignments, you will either be using one of these two right here. I'm going to skip over fit for a minute because that one's a little more confusing. I'm going to save that for last. Primary units. This is where I've spoken to you about here the decimal. If I change it to architectural, uh, then architect the precision is feet and inches. And notice now that if I go back here to text, my fractional height scale can change. Okay, because I'm using architectural. Right here, we have that the trailing zero is shaded because you won't be using that. Feet and inches is what you would be using because it's architectural. Watch this stuff get shaded, and this will go high when I go to decimal. Okay, so if I go to architectural, what is leading and trailing zeros?